Are you wondering how do you capitalize on all this disruption that's happening in the world in a new startup? Well, I'm going to tell you 7 specific steps on what you need to keep in mind. As entrepreneurs and business owners, we know that if we have a clear plan, anything becomes possible. And if you can have a clear plan, a clear process to create that plan, and a way to create clarity with your partner or spouse, you can drive to amazing heights. All right, so stick with me to the end, and I'm going to give you a special kicker as well. But if you're thinking, hey, I know there's a lot of disruption coming. Cool, great, there is. How do I take advantage of that? Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you 7 specific steps on how you start doing it. So the initial thing is to start looking much further downfield. And what I mean by that is try and create and look into your crystal ball as much as you can. Think about the areas that you're already an expert, or that you're very familiar with, or that you have a heavy, keen interest in, that you really value and you enjoy. And just start looking 1 to 5 years out. The trick is to start to define, what do I think amazing is going to look like in that 1 to 5 year period? Not where we are today, and don't think about how we're going to get there, but think about what's possible. The more you start looking for 1 to 5 years out on where we want to be, that's going to be the big thing that's going to start, where you can start with defining what is success. Where do we want to be with this? So as an example, as a strategic advisor and coach, well, the advisory work is really hard to scale up through an AI component. But the coaching, I hate to admit it, is probably going to be scaled through AI. So with that in mind, I think that there's a good chance that in the future, people will be able to interact with an AI coach. And in fact, I'm going to launch one here in about a month that has a lot of resources that can answer a lot of the coaching questions and actually potentially read your body language, things like that. So if that's where I think it's going, crazy. Well, what are the things that are going to impact that? So when you start thinking about disruptions, there's 4 primary disruptions that I think about. So the first thing is trying to find, where do you want to be in the future? What do you think is possible? And then the second thing is start thinking about, what is the impact of the disruptions on where you want to be? And what are those disruptions? So obviously the one that's all hot and everybody likes talking about is AI. Well, machine learning. There is a ton out there. And I think we're just barely scratching the surface of something that's infinitely huge. And the time frames on how quickly that happens are going to be the hardest thing for our little lizard brains to keep up with, because growth in AI is only limited by the power and the bandwidth that it has. And you have to be able to ask the right questions. So if you start thinking, okay, well, in my industry, how is AI going to impact this? And people are like, well, maybe you have a consulting business, or maybe who knows what you're doing. But this is going to start impacting. It doesn't matter if you're an accountant or an architect, or in virtually every industry is going to have some sort of impact on this. And if you can start understanding what that impact is, start taking into account what it could be, well, it's going to help you figure out where you can be further down the road. Now, the second one of these is automation, and it depends on the types of businesses you're in. But the types of, when you start integrating machine learning with all the automation and the third-party logistics or just-in-time delivery of things, I know I work with a larger aerospace company, and they're getting to where they've got massive 3D printers that can print stuff because it is so much more efficient than how things used to be made. So maybe you're a small contractor in a very specialty niche type of thing. Is there different types of tools or resources that you can be getting and having and using in front of that's going to help? I work with a company that specifically does, they do a lot of museum and exhibits. And they're looking at all sorts of different ways that technology and automation is going to be impacting it. It's going to be massive for them. All right, the third thing is start thinking about, what is the impact of supply chain challenges and transitions? Now, when you look at China, whether you believe it or not, China has more people over the age of 65 than they do under the age of 45. China is literally on an inverted pyramid of growth, whereas every healthy country on the planet is a healthy pyramid where there's more people who are feeding into the old people, and it's the exact opposite. China has a very strong possibility that it's going to have a full implosion within the next few years. Some people argue that this could even happen in places like Germany, which also has a similar, not quite as bad, but it's upside down. Japan's been going through this for almost 30 years. You look at Korea. There are different places all over the world, and these are some of the primary manufacturing and supply chain places. So if you could start saying, all right, in 1 to 5 years, if we weren't able to get these certain tools or resources or supplies or whatever it is from these other places, where else could we get them? Is this something that we could actually use a new technology that we created here in the US? Or is it something that we could, supply from Mexico or some other place? Are there alternatives? But thinking about that, what is the impact of a supply chain disruption? And then the last one that I like to look at is, I don't like looking at it, but it's important, is thinking about what about financial impacts? If we hit a financial crescendo, the fact that our illustrious US government spends more money, the most expensive line item for the government now is no longer the military, it's no longer Social Security, it's just paying interest. So some people call this that we're in sort of a debt spiral, not a death spiral, but a debt spiral. And the impact on what's going to happen with interest rates and finances and things like that. So if you're in an industry that's very heavy financially motivated or financial driven, start thinking about what are the impacts of this in that 1 to 5 year period, looking further down. Once we start understanding these are the different problems and these are the different impacts, we're starting to smoke out some ideas of what could be in that 1 to 5 year period. The third thing I'm going to suggest is that you start acting as if. Problem solve as if these cases are real. And if this were real, and this is the thing that's happening, and this is what you're solving, okay, how do you get there? And what is the impact of that? How do you get in front of it so that you're being very, very proactive with it? But solving as if some of these key things are going to be disruptive in your industry. And start saying, well, if I do this and I actually start doing the research around this, how do I lean into this? So the fourth thing is, once you start problem solving as if these are realities for today, then leverage the existing skills and relationships you have. So if it's supply chain, you might start saying, okay, well, I know I can go to this trade show, and I'm thinking to start my own business in these areas, but I know everybody gets most of the stuff from China and Taiwan right now. But I want to go there and specifically start seeing, is there other areas that are creating these things? Are they using some of the tools of AI? Are they using tools of some of the automation in other areas that may end up being disruptive that allow us to move things in a faster way? What are the skills we currently have? What are the resources you currently have? So for me, I have multiple books, courses, videos, hundreds of blogs. All of this is getting dropped into a big database, and we're using this with an AI avatar that'll be able to be as a coach, so that people can have an interaction with that from a virtual coach. Now, is it going to be perfect to start with? Probably not, but it will be something that we'll be able to leverage and grow, and it'll be a way that I can start to scale and help people with. Okay, so the next level on this is to start thinking about, if these are the cases, leveraging up what you're going to need. What will it take to be a trusted expert in this space? Why would people believe you? Why are people going to value that? Now, in some cases, it may be education, maybe different certifications. It may be ways that you engage with people and you have different relationships. But when you start to do this and people know that you're the expert, and they trust you for whatever reason that is, maybe it's previous experience combined with future looking and resources that you've allocated, it's going to help you immensely. So you start saying, this is where I want to go. Cool, right on. Now, the next thing is, once you start figuring that out, is to come back and build a full plan on how do we actually build this new business, this new startup, this solopreneur, or it could be a larger business. And then once we build that plan, build that strategy, and I have lots of videos on that on multiple channels, then once you have that, then you have to execute, and that's the last thing, the seventh point, is execute with ruthless but compassionate consistency. Ultra consistency. Execute, test, review, repeat, adjust, review, repeat, adjust. So ideally you found some value with this. Thank you for sticking with me to the end. If you're on the Solopreneur course, tell you what, or if you're interested in our Solopreneur course, if you're one of the first 5 people to reach out, I will be happy to give you the course on me. Reach out to the email below, and I'm going to give to the first 5 who reach out. I am going to ask for you to do a testimonial. So hopefully you had good value with this. Please feel free to share it, subscribe. Look forward to hearing from you. Keep smiling.